Before the British came to India, there was the Mughal Empire. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh yeah, those guys built the Taj and a bunch of other pretty buildings. But when it comes to India, the mules are more than just architects. They were administrators, soldiers, religious thinkers, and innovators. In fact, they forged one of the world's wealthiest and most powerful empires and created a period that would become known as a golden age in India. And yes, we know that gold is kinda a neutral color, so don't add it. But regardless of the shade, this period of Indian history was undeniably remarkable. The problem was that this success was often built on a foundation of conflict. So while the Mongols created an unrivaled cultural achievement, they also sowed the seeds of destruction that ultimately paved the way for the British Raj. So let's talk about how the Mongols fell, how the British took advantage of that fall, and how the Mongols may have actually paved the way for colonization. All right, let's get into it. First, let us rewind a bit because it is hard to talk about the Mongols without mentioning their incredible achievements. The Mongol Empire stretched from the Himalayas in the north to the Arabian Sea in the south, covering much of the Indian subcontinent. Under their reign, the vast and diverse territory was unified under a single, efficient administration. While the Mongols ruled through a combination of military force and diplomacy, their greatest strength lay in their ability to integrate conquered peoples into their empire. They often allowed local rulers to keep their positions as long as they pledged loyalty to the emperor. Additionally, their introduction of accounting rules and standardized weights and measures facilitated trade within the empire. But perhaps most importantly, the Mongols created a syncretic culture that blended Persian and Indian traditions. Think of it as the original Indo-Persian fusion. Except instead of showing up in your feed after a long day of scrolling, it was influencing poetry, music, and cuisine. During the reigns of emperors like Akbar the Great, the arts flourished, and ideas flowed freely between cultures. Courtly love, a genre of poetry that celebrates romantic love, became immensely popular. Musicians experimented with new instruments and compositions, and chefs created innovative dishes by combining Central Asian and Indian ingredients. This cultural synthesis reached its zenith under Shah, the emperor responsible for the iconic Taj Mahal. His passion for architecture resulted in the construction of several stunning monuments, including the iconic Taj and the Red Fort in Delhi, which stand as testaments to the wealth and artistic vision of the era. In fact, during this period, the empire was an economic powerhouse responsible for almost a quarter of the world's manufacturing. Textiles, carpets, jewelry, and steel products made in the Mongol heartlands were highly sought after around the globe. For merchants and artisans, the vast empire provided a massive market for their goods. The famous Mughal Road, which connected Kashmir to Central Asia, facilitated trade with China and Europe. Overall, this confluence of factors made the Mughal era a golden age in Indian history, a period of unprecedented cultural and economic achievement. However, this success was not without its challenges. The Mongol Empire's trajectory shifted dramatically with the ascent of Aurangzeb to the throne. He abandoned his father's relatively tolerant rule, pursuing a more orthodox vision of Islam. His policies targeted non-Muslims, most notably the Hindus, whom he viewed as a threat to the purity of Islam. He destroyed prominent temples like the Keshav Rai Temple, alienated influential groups such as the Rajputs and Marathas, and reimposed the attacks on non-Muslims, which was seen as a grave injustice. These actions alienated powerful sections of the population, including many who had been loyal to the empire for generations. And soon after, these tensions boiled over, sparking rebellions that drained the imperial treasury and fractured the political unity the empire had worked to build. The timing of Aurangzeb's reign, coinciding with the peak of European colonialism, proved to be particularly disastrous. As the Marathas and other groups revolted, the Mongols found themselves locked in a series of protracted conflicts. This instability fatally weakened the Mongol state, leaving the door open for European powers to intervene. So while the Mongols left behind a rich legacy of art, architecture, and cultural fusion, their later years were marked by conflict and rigidity. Their story is a reminder that even in the face of immense success, the pursuit of absolute control can lead to the downfall of great empires. Now, if you've watched our videos on French or Portuguese colonialism, then you already know that Europeans were quick to take advantage of any weakness they could find in the Mongol Empire. But unlike their Western counterparts, the British didn't conquer India in a single sweeping conquest. Instead, they exploited the fragmentation of the subcontinent, only defeating those who stood in their way. To understand how the British accomplished this, let's fast forward to 1757 and the Battle of Plassey. The battle itself was a decisive moment in Indian history. It pitted the forces of the British East India Company against the Nawab of Bengal and his allies. The British, led by the infamous Robert Clive, won a decisive victory, capturing the Nawab's artillery and giving them every opportunity to surrender. They then proceeded to execute or imprison the Nawab's entire council, signing a treaty that forced the Nawab to cede control of Bengal's governance to the British. This victory marked the beginning of the end for the Mughal Empire. You see, the real genius of the British was that they didn't try to conquer a unified Mongol state. Instead, they systematically dismantled the regional kingdoms that were challenging Mongol rule. One by one, they intervened in local conflicts, offering their support to whichever side would benefit them the most. They formed strategic alliances with some Indian princes, like the Raja of Benares, who helped them capture the city of Kabul. At the same time, they exploited existing rivalries, encouraging the Sikhs and Marathas to expand their territories, weakening other potential allies of the Mongols. With each passing year, the British presence grew, eventually culminating in their victory at Plassey and the subsequent annexation of Bengal. And so the Mughal Empire did not collapse overnight, but slowly disintegrated as the British chipped away at its foundations. By the mid-19th century, the once mighty empire was little more than a shadow of its former self, reduced to a small area around Delhi. Now, while the British were undoubtedly brilliant strategists and tech, they also benefited greatly from the disarray within the Mughal Empire. The lack of a strong central authority meant that the British did not have to face the full force of the Mughal military machine. Moreover, the ongoing conflicts between the Mongols and various Indian states had already weakened the subcontinent's defenses, making it easier for the British to insert themselves into local power structures. Finally, the Mongols' rigid religious policies had alienated many of their subjects, creating a pool of potential allies for the British to draw upon. So the British conquest of India was a complex process that built on the weaknesses created by the decline of the Mughal Empire. Their victory at Plassey marked a turning point, enabling them to exploit further weaknesses and gradually extend their control across the subcontinent. Lastly, it's important to note that the British did not simply replace the Mongols. They fundamentally re-engineered Indian society in ways that created lasting damage. To maintain their dominance, the British institutionalized a policy of divide and rule, which sought to prevent a united uprising against them. They amplified religious and caste differences, creating separate laws and electorates, and wrote histories that portrayed communities like Hindus and Muslims as historic, irreconcilable enemies. It culminated in the partition of 1947, a violent division of the subcontinent into Hindu majorities. This event displaced millions and led to the deaths of up to 2 million people, creating deep-seated hostility and geopolitical conflict that persists today. In conclusion, the Mongol Empire stands as a testament to the possibilities of cultural fusion and administrative efficiency. However, their story is not just about their achievements. it's also about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of religious tolerance. The Mongol fall and the British takeovers serves as a reminder of how external forces can exploit internal weaknesses to devastating effect. And the lasting impact of British rule in India shows how colonial policies can shape the political and social landscape for generations to come. All right, everyone, that's it for this video. As always, if you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe. And remember, if you sign up using the link in the description, you'll get a whole extra month for free.